Some smooth sounds of jazz going on here just because it's the start of April and it feels like a jazz month. I don't know if it has something to do with this lack of springtime that we don't have in the air yet or what's going on, but welcome to Rix Room. I'm your host, Mr. Rick. It is Wednesday evening and we are in the room talking about credit repair and financial planning this evening. And before I get started, I want to make sure that we take a moment, hey Facebook, what's going on, to acknowledge the remembrance of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination 50 years ago today. We're slowly making progress, but we're still dreaming. We're still dreaming, and continue to rest in peace to the infamous, the trendsetter, and somebody I think even coined one of the second founders of America, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. They got a lot of celebration. I don't think they're out there still celebrating, and they still got the concert going on, do they? Yeah. They're still going on? Yep. I don't know where my ticket was. It must have got lost in the mail. But anyway, so if this is your first time hanging out in the room, welcome. This is definitely a place that we kick back, relax, and have adult conversations about confronting stereotypes, discussing current events, or, whatever else may just come up in the room. I just ask that you remain respectful in the conversation, but definitely make sure that you're participating. And if you've been here before, you know the deal. Go ahead and kick back, relax, grab yourself an adult beverage and find a comfortable spot, maybe on a couch, on the floor, on an ottoman, love seat, whatever. You know the rules. Stay off my bed. And you can find us here live every Wednesday at IntellectualRadio.com and iHeartRadio station. Shout out to the hashtag IR Hump Day crew. Hashtag Wednesday is the new Friday. We're live streaming on Facebook. Everybody say, hey, Facebook. What's going on, Facebook? And if you're live with us over on YouTube or IntellectualRadio.com, those cameras over there say what's going on. And make sure that you participate in the conversation via either of those two. If you happen to miss any of the shows, you can always catch up on iHeartRadio.com or even on iTunes. Just search for Intellectual Radio under the podcast section. Let me go ahead and introduce a few gentlemen here that are going to be talking with me. As you all saw in the post, maybe you saw in the post, if you're watching this on Facebook, you saw in the post, that financial planning and credit repair is important. And I got some experts, I like to call them some experts in both fields because I suck at it. So I want to make sure that not only they give me some advice on this, but are available for you all. Yes, we did this for you. It's just really all about you. So to go ahead and get started, let me introduce to you all a good friend of mine, a longtime friend of mine, credit repair expert from the Profile Builders, Mr. Lorenzo King is in the room. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Glad to be here. Ready to get into it.
Right. You might have seen, if you follow Mr. Zoe on Facebook, he had a live event about a month ago, maybe a little over a month ago.
Yeah, about a month.
And I listened to the amount of questions that came in. I don't know if we're going to be able to keep up with y'all questions, so call in, but we'll get to that in just a second. And a returning guest and one of the sponsors of Rix Room is back here in the room with us. We have the financial services professional, Mr. Eric Lane is here with us. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Good to be here again.
It's so glad to have you back. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, so before we get started, listen, you all, if in the event you do have questions, concerns, comments, best practices that you want to share, feel free to go ahead and comment on the live stream that's going on there on Facebook, or give us a call. 708-223-8953 is the number to dial. And if in the event you happen to be out about and you can't make this, it's probably the bad time to tell you, but you can always email your questions to rixroom2@gmail.com. That's RIXROOM, the number 2@gmail.com, and get that question taken care of on the show. Cheers to Wednesday. It is the middle of the week. We have made it.
Cheers.
We got the blue solo cups today, y'all. We rocking the blue solo cups. It might be a Sigma thing, but it's all right. It's my room. I can do that.
Okay. All right.
Before we get started, I want to let you know this show is being brought to you in part by DLP Serenity Travel. Vacation season is approaching. For whatever reason, we just can't seem to get spring to kick in yet. So if you're looking for a getaway but can't find the time to plan a vacation, just check out DLP Serenity Travel and get your vacation planning taken care of. Planning trips both domestic and international, and even cruises, DLP Serenity Travel can get you ready for your next getaway. Just contact DLP Serenity Travel by visiting their website at www.dlpserenitytravel.com or give them a call directly, 773-678-4161, to schedule a consultation. That's DLP Serenity Travel, where it's all about you. All right, so let's go ahead and get this conversation started, because I'm pretty sure I haven't even got a chance to check on Facebook yet to see if there have been some people getting ready to get started here. It looks like there are some comments, but let me ask you guys to start this conversation off. I'm interested, like, my passion is hospitality. Anybody who knows me knows that my passion is the service industry. I'm curious, how did y'all get started in your respective fields? What got you involved and interested in it?
Well, I know for me personally, just my own bad credit, honestly, is what started it. It was, just kind of being at an age where you just kind of got tired of just spending all your own hard-earned money on everything and getting denied for stuff and needing co-signers as an adult and a parent. It didn't feel right. You know what I mean? I guess that's probably the biggest thing. And just another thing, I kind of always been interested in financial planning and, finances in general, and just realized that most of the wealthiest people in this world, they don't use their own money, so that kind of excited me more about it. And I just kind of took it from there.
I like that. They don't use their own money.
Very true.
Wow.
Very true.
We'll get to that a little bit later on. See whose money I can be using in this game. Mr. Eric, how did you get started in financial services?
A long story that I'll try to make short. I got out of college and was looking for a job. And my dad said, you need to get a job because you can't live here without one. So I spoke to my pastor at the time, Jeffrey L. Brown. Shout out Pastor Brown if you're watching. And he got me a job in banking as a teller. And I had moved my way up, was a branch manager for 10 plus years, and then transitioned from there to work in the treasury industry, treasury and finance, and now in financial services.
Nice. So that's a bit of a journey for you.
It has been, a 20 plus year journey.
20 plus years.
Yeah, but I'm not telling. I was hoping not to tell.
We won't talk about when you got started.
Yes,
but
yes.
what year
I was 10. I was 10.
Right, exactly. Clearly.
Sure.
Well, thank you, gentlemen, for sharing that. I'll tell you, and so you make a great point, at getting to a certain age in life, at least for me, I'm now, like I like to call this, I'm in my late mid 30s, and I'm moving into my early late 30s.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? That's where we're going.
Okay.
So it's about time to kind of get some things in order. You don't want to keep asking people for, can you help me co-sign with this and and whatnot. So I completely understand that, and I look forward to hearing some great best practices as well. I mean, and let's face it, the way things are set up, like the government, millennials, my bank account, financial planning is essential and paramount. Right. People are living longer these days. Right. So you want to make sure you're not only prepared for the now, but preparing for the future.
Yeah.
Right. So let me get started with something. Zoe, you and I talked about this once before, and it looks like you've done some great things here already, because Ken Collier said, Zoe helped me gain over 200 points in less than 5 months. Can't thank them enough.
Yeah.
Hold on. Let's get this conversation on. So, because so this is the thing, and I'm gonna start here. For those of you all who are watching, I'm going to tell you, you can't get nothing with my credit number, so it's fine. I'm gonna put this out there. But so I checked out my credit score on Credit Karma. Shout out to Credit Karma if y'all don't have it. I don't know if that's a good method to use or not. We'll get to that in a second. But so my TransUnion score was 548, and my Equifax was 550. And it said my Equifax went up like 3 points. And my TransUnion went up 1 point. I was excited. Like, oh, my credit score's going up. I'm doing good.
Little by little, right?
But it's in the right direction, at least I think. But so talk to me about, is what numbers is one more important to pay attention to? Like, where do you start?
Well, it's funny you started with TransUnion and Equifax regarding Credit Karma, because Credit Karma scores are actually, they're educational scores. They mean nothing to the banks. Absolutely nothing to the credit card industry. They don't go by them, not at all. So FICO is really what they look at. So I tend to look at it as, if they're giving you something for free, it's normally a reason behind it. And so, like, because everybody's so into the Credit Karma because it's free, they don't realize that the reason they're giving it to you for free is because they're hoping that you go through one of their links and apply for a card, because that's why they always put at the bottom, hey, you're more than likely to get approved for this card.
I noticed that. I see those cards. I'm like, yeah, I can get a credit card.
It's
prepaid.
It's affiliate. They're
right.
getting paid an affiliate fee for every. Even if you get denied, they get like $3 per just application. They get somewhere 20 to 25 if you get approved. So that's one of the biggest things. I don't knock it because I guess everybody has to start somewhere. But at the end of the day, Credit Karma is a great tool to kind of start figuring out where you at. But if you really want to know where you at, make sure you look at FICO scores, because those are Vantage scores and they won't help you at all.
Okay. So FICO, I know that there are banks that are giving out FICO scores, right? I think there's a couple of them that now give that out. I think it's almost for free, isn't it? Or just Discover's doing like free?
Yeah, there's a few of them.
There's a few of them?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Taps into Wells Fargo and looks for FICO scores. But so when we talk about Credit Karma, and again, it seems that there are several people who are using Credit Karma. They're all over the place. They got commercials and whatnot.
Of course.
It's more educational to kind of get a understanding. Right. What's the range if I haven't looked at my FICO score, what would be the guesstimate that my credit score, if it's ringing up 548 and 550 between TransUnion and Equifax on credit score, what would it be estimated wise, guesstimate, higher or lower?
Well, to be honest with you, there's no real way to look at it because there's 65 different FICO scores. So like when people say, what's my real score? It's just based on which FICO version this particular bank or particular lender is using. So what I like to tell people is one of the biggest things you should do is, if you really truly want to know your FICO, kind of go to somewhere like myfico.com. It's more expensive. It's not free like Credit Karma. Oh. It's just like anything else.
Right. You got to pay for it.
You pay for what you get.
Right.
So if you kind of going to like maybe go get a house or a car, you definitely want to go there before you go have the car dealership or the mortgage lender run your credit and you don't end up with 50 inquiries.
Right.
Only to find out you're getting denied.
You mean to tell me that commercial that Credit Karma has out where that couple's trying to purchase the house and they were like, they looked at the Credit Karma and they were like, you got the house. I can't use that? Oh, that's horrible.
No,
that's horrible.
No,
that commercial, like I'm looking at it like, because I'm in the market looking for a place, and I would like to eventually, you know what I mean? And I'm looking specifically in a certain area. I won't divulge where it is, but in that particular area, as I'm looking, I'm thinking to myself, the commercial said I could just pull up my Credit Karma and I get this place. And we know I'm going to get it based on my credit score. George Thorne asked a good question. He said, what's considered a good credit score? And Remy LeBeau, well, shout out to Remy. What's going on all the way on the West Coast there? I appreciate you tuning in. Said, how is the best way to track FICO? Is it just the one free credit report you get once a year?
Well, no. For the first question, a good credit score is kind of what you make of it, depending on, again, the lender. You could be at a lender and they might accept you at a 580, but that may not set you up for the best interest rates. You know what I mean? So I guess if you want to go in the terms of what I guess the overall public considers a good score, 720 or above would be considered a good credit score. But the number could be anywhere from 720 to 780, depending on which lender you're going through. And as far as the second question, annualcreditreport.com does give you it doesn't give you a FICO score, but what it does give you is a free copy of all three of your credit reports once a year. And then, of course, after that, you pay. But like I said, the best place to look, if you really want to look, is myfico.com.
Good to know. Good to know. And if in the event I pull my credit, that credit report, that annual credit report, is it a certain particular time of year that would be the best time to?
Well, if you're not in the market to actually buy nothing, what I kind of tell people to do is maybe pull one every couple months instead of pulling them all at one time. So that way you can kind of spread it out a little bit more than just doing it all in one time. But again, they got pretty decently, fairly priced credit monitoring services that's pretty reasonable. And with the way the data breach has been going with like Equifax, you would want to kind of have that anyway at this point.
Yo, we're going to circle back around to that too, because they didn't improve my credit score with that breach. I don't know what happened. What was the breach for? Like, I don't understand. And they're not improving any of my student loans, all this hacking going on, and nothing's getting improved. I don't want to know who's doing the hacking. And we have quite a few questions that are coming in. And of course, I knew this was going to happen. What's the best way to improve the credit score? I'm going to make y'all wait for that. I'm not going to make you wait. We're going to talk about it, I promise. But I have a question, and Eric, you might be able to help me out with this. In financial services, you know, how much of your credit score plays a part in, you know, your financial services setup? You know, is there an opportunity for financial institutions when you're planning long term to look at your credit score and make the determination from there? What is that process like?
Well, they don't use typically traditional brick and mortar places don't use that in determining your financial needs. You may see that where you're applying for utilities and things like that. They will factor into that. But in terms of, you know, going to, I don't want to call names, but going to a bank or going to an investment firm, that really doesn't play into what you'll be dealing with. Now, of course, if you are having credit issues, it may bleed into what you're doing in terms of your long range planning. But to have it specifically and directly impact your long-term planning because of your credit score, that's usually not the case.
So I'm always interested in, you know, finding opportunities because, again, I'm in my late mid 30s, moving into my late 30s now. I want to get, you know, set up, as I mentioned. We're living a lot longer these days, right? I don't know if that constitutes Black Americans too, whatever. You know, as Americans, we're living longer, right? And we want to be set up. And I know that in the past, we as a people don't necessarily do the best job with, you know, planning for our future as a whole. Not saying individually, but as a whole, there's some opportunities that we have with that. And, you know, again, this is one of the biggest reasons I wanted to make sure we had the conversation for any and everybody, really. But I'd like to say that long term, right? Retirement, be set, and I don't have to worry about going back into employment. What are the best ways to start planning now so that when I get to my retirement age and I can finally get AARP, I can't wait for that to come in the mail. That's not true. I can wait for it. But when I'm finally getting to that retirement age, how do I plan for that now in my mid to late 30s, almost in my early late 30s, whatever, you know what I'm saying?
Yes. Well, I think you're right that it's been proven that, or statistically, that Americans are living longer than they ever have. The other thing that Americans are doing are retiring earlier than they ever have. Traditionally, or 30 years ago, you worked till you were 65, and then you died when you were 75, 80. So you just had to plan for about 10, 15 years of retirement. But now we have folks retiring at 60, 62, and living till almost 90. So now you have to navigate all of that, 20, 30 years in retirement. So it is important to make sure that you're planning. What I always try to tell people is take the free money first. So if you have an employer where you can participate in a 401k and they are matching, take that money. A lot of people say, oh, no, I don't want to participate. I don't know. And no, participate. I mean, even if you are not participating in the best investment vehicles, even if you just have it sitting in cash, which is not what I recommend, but even if you do, take the money that they're matching and giving you. And then secondly, I always tell people just start as soon as you can. I mean, I have a cousin who's probably watching, who has started working full time. And my recommendation or my suggestion to him is to start participating in the 401k as soon as you can. As well, IRAs. I would recommend a Roth or traditional. It really is going to depend on your tax needs. But you want to participate in an IRA. You want to participate in basically saving. That's the biggest thing is making sure that you're saving. And of course, if you can take advantage of the tax advantages in the 401k or IRA in saving, but just saving. And
so we're going to circle back here actually when it comes to finding best ways of saving, and I want to highlight that too in just a second. But when we talk about the concept of saving, that impacts how we're able to take care of debt that we have. And, of course, debt affects our credit, right?
Sure.
So those two, and this is why I wanted to have you two on together. These things go hand in hand. So I see all the questions that are going on about credit repair. It seems like so many people are really just strung out on trying to get credit numbers up. And I get that. I really do get that. But I want to make sure that it's not just about what we're doing in the now, but understanding how to ensure that we're sustaining ourselves, further throughout. And as you said, saving is a great way to start doing that. Go ahead.
Not to cut you off, but I always tell people that it shouldn't be and doesn't have to be an either or. Exactly. Because once you pay off that credit card, they may say, you know what? Since you had it outstanding so long, we're not going to extend credit to you anymore. Exactly. And then where are you? You don't have any savings, but because you devoted it all to the credit card. Exactly. Now what? So I think it really needs to be both and, where you're paying down your credit card and also putting some money away for savings. Exactly. So you don't find yourself in that type of situation.
I want you all to know, if any of you go to church, Eric just gave a word. He just delivered a word for you. He said, and I'm going to tell you what the word was. And there's a lot of misconception about that word and this show is financial planning and credit repair. Come on, and we're gonna need an usher in a minute. All right, so I got a couple of questions here on Facebook. And listen, if we don't get to all your questions and comments, guys, I apologize. There are several of you who want to know, who just really want to know. Right. And these are the individuals that you need to reach out to, and I'll make sure that their contact information not only is here listed, so that you can contact them directly, set up your consultations with them, and speak to them directly. But at their leisure, they can get a chance to answer your questions if they have some time to go back to it. But we'll try to get to most of them as we can here on the show as best as I can. Brother Charles Tarbert, my frat brother, what's going on? Go Mob Sir, said there was discussion on in proposed credit score reports last year of removing existing liens on properties or homes from the calculation of your credit score. Has that occurred?
Well, of course, with all the data breaches, they've been doing a lot of making up to the public, is like what I like to call it. So last year, they initially did removement of most judgments, which helped out a lot of people that had judgments on their credit. And then now, starting in April, they're moving majority of liens. Now, typically, the home liens, not necessarily as much, but more like state liens or even IRS liens will be removed. Because again, it's public record, and I won't go deep into that. I'll just say that something like that should have never been on your credit report anyway, because that's a public record, and if anybody pulling your credit, that should have nothing to do with, that doesn't have anything to do with credit, if it makes sense. You know what I mean? That's a public record. So
that's for Charles. I'm sure Charles is listening. He's a faithful avid listener. I appreciate Charles for listening as well. Amanda Sweden said she was one of the earlier ones to ask about best ways to improve credit, and we can get to that too. But she also asked specifically about dealing with health issues and missing a couple of credit card payments. Is there anything that she can do to is there anything she can do or that you're aware of to help avoid those missed payments going against her? And I think that kind of speaks to the opportunity of improving credit score.
Well, I mean,
Robert also asked, is it possible to get credit scores without a loan?
Well, I guess I'll answer her question first and kind of make it quick.
Try to go through all of them again.
The goodwill letters are pretty much, depending on how long you had your relationship with a particular credit card, you would typically want to reach out to them, obviously, as soon as possible, rather than later, and explain to them your situation. Not all credit card companies are that forgiving, but most of them are, because, again, they still want to keep that business. They would rather stretch the payments out than you default and then they don't get anything per se. I mean, they get to write it off on their taxes, but they rather you keep spending money with them. So write a goodwill letter. Again, do it in writing. Don't necessarily do it over the phone as much, because you want to have a paper trail of what you're doing. So I would say just do that. And as far as improving your score, one of the first things, and I'll get to this because I mean, it's one of those things that now that I've heard it, like, I want to say almost 1 million times, when I look at people's scores that's in the 500s, and they come to me and they say, well, man, one, they haven't looked at their score in like 4 years before they tell me this. I know my score.
I'm winning. I looked at mine already.
I know my score is like 300. I know my score is like 300.
I'm real talk. I thought mine was too before I started checking it out. My score's got to be like in the 3, maybe 200s. Is that even a thing? But anyway, go ahead.
But one of the biggest things I see is the moment I look at a credit report, I say, but you have no credit card. And they say, well, who don't give me a credit card with my credit being like this? And I say, well, don't look at it in that sense. What most of the cards that we're used to is unsecured cards, meaning like you don't put no money down. But almost anybody, no matter your credit score, can get a secured card, meaning like whatever you put down is what your credit limit will be. And you still get the same amount of points that somebody who got approved for unsecured would get. They don't get more than you or less than you. Typically, that's normally 30 to 50 point improvement just by adding a credit card. So you can take $200 and improve your score possibly 50 points. And that's before going to anybody to do any credit repair.
That's a nugget right there that he just gave you out. That's just $200 on a secured credit card. That's all you got to put down, and you can improve your score by 50 points. That's pretty dynamic. George Thorne asked, so is it best to pay off debt first or to begin saving for the future for retirement?
Oh, that's
right.
Well, again, I think it's a both and.
Exactly.
I think you got to plan for retirement.
Yep.
You have to. I think without, so many people now are living past the retirement age and having to go back to work.
Yep.
And it's basically for lack of being able to save or planning to save. So you have to do that, but you also got to take care of your credit and make sure that that's in good order. So you have to. It's another. Both and
again, that should be the title of the show.
I like it.
We're going with that. We're changing this and. But that and is important. It is a powerful and. It's only 3 letters, and it's so powerful.
Indeed.
Listen, while I'm in my mid,
Okay.
put my glasses on here because it's getting a little difficult to read. I got a lot going on here. These dissertations. Remy LeBeau also asked, can you speak more to challenging older accounts on one's credit report and the feasibility of having those removed? I'm going to encompass also, Lola asked, does filing for bankruptcy ruin your financial future? Is it best to just try and pay credit cards off, even if it takes a long time? I think that can be for both of you.
Okay. Well, all right. Well, we'll start with the bankruptcy thing, I guess, for me, because bankruptcy is something that I tell people, unless you're totally financially strapped, avoid it as much as possible, because again, most lenders are forgiving to a point. And so with that being said, you never know what tomorrow will bring. That's what they say, right? So okay,
that's what they say.
You file bankruptcy on Monday, and God forbid you come into $50,000, $100,000 the next day. Well, there's nothing you could do about the bankruptcy at that point. I mean, well, you can probably call me and we could figure out a way to
hold on, catch that. You should just say, drop that down.
Figure that out.
Right.
But I'm just saying, in general, you lose 200 points the moment the bankruptcy goes into effect. And it also straps you as far as what you can do, depending on if you file Chapter 13 or Chapter 7. So Chapter 7, obviously, that wipes away all your debt. You're pretty much starting over. You can pretty much probably start getting secured cards immediately. But in Chapter 13, you can't, because you're in a repayment plan. So you have to get actually approved from the courts to actually even go get a secured card, because you're claiming that you don't have any money when you take on that bankruptcy. So how do you have money to go get new credit when you haven't paid your old debt? So I tend to tell people to kind of steer clear of that as much as possible. But, stuff happens in life, and sometimes you can avoid it. So, but most times I'll say definitely avoid bankruptcy at all costs.
Well, so duly noted. I know that there's been some. I've listened to people talk about bankruptcy and it being a way to go, and some people using that as an out. It sounds like Chapter 7 might be the better of the two, just to wipe everything clean.
Right.
But in a sense, bankruptcy staying away from ultimately is what we like to do.
Right.
Dr. L. Bernard Jakes is in the room. He said, great conversation. Eric is representing me in establishing an estate for my alma mater.
Yes, sir. I sure am.
What does that mean?
Establishing an estate. Well, is that what you mean?
Sure. No, I'm setting that up for Dr. L. Bernard Jakes.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead and divulge into that just a little bit. Because George Thorne says legacy planning through insurance is such an important. Thanks for bringing this up, Indeed. Pastor L. Bernard Jakes.
Yeah.
Shout out to West Point Baptist Church.
Indeed. So legacy planning, setting up an estate, is really a way to have pennies on the dollars that you are setting up for the future. So you're going to pay, of course, something, but it's going to be a small amount compared to the amount of insurance, amount of coverage that you'll have to leave for the future. And you can do that in a few ways, but the best way is to do that through life insurance, where you're getting pennies on the dollars, and then you designate those policies to have a certain beneficiary who the money is paid out to. I just think in our community, if I can be candid, I think in our community we don't do enough of that. We don't see that as often. And I think because people think, well, I'm not sure what people think, but I've heard that people say, oh, well, Big Mama didn't do that for me, so I'm not doing it for my kids, and so on and so forth. But I promise you, with all the love that Big Mama showed you in terms of the cooking that she did and making sure you had a roof over your head and making sure you went to school, if she had the resources to provide that to you, she would have. Because I promise you, in other communities, that's exactly what's going on. And I've sat and watched HGTV with my spouse and with others, and they say, I can't understand how these 25-year-olds are buying a $2 million home, and they just out of college. Yep. And the trick to the trade is that granny or grandpa took out an insurance policy and cared enough, and not only cared enough, but also had the resources to make sure that they had enough money to put a down payment on a $2 million home, or that they had enough money to pay for college. So as soon as they got to working, they had the resources to use their money to go towards a down payment on a home. So again, I think it's really important to make sure that you are maximizing pennies on the dollar for what you would get in terms of life insurance.
I wanted to bring up life insurance too at some point. I'm glad we're able to do it while we're at this. And we'll do it at this junction because we're mentioning it. So life insurance seems to be, with most financial services organizations, life insurance seems to be the first place that is always kind of pushed. And I'm curious to know if is that because that's the best way to start planning for the future? Is the intent really to ensure that we're doing that? We're setting up estates for, the generations to come, our generations to come. And what is the benefit for the individual that is planning for life insurance that's going to be a financial services for them currently?
Yeah, it really is the best way to go about doing that. Again, because it's pennies on the dollar. You're paying a certain amount of money for a larger pool of money that your beneficiaries would be entitled to. So it just makes sense that you would do that. And I think, unfortunately, historically in our community, in the African American community, we tend to lean towards burial insurance. And what that does is just make sure that we are put in the ground properly. It doesn't make sure that people who we are leaving behind are taken care of. Doesn't make sure that our babies are able to go to college because of our lost income. It doesn't make sure that the mortgage and the bills are going to be paid. Doesn't make sure that our spouses won't have to take on other jobs, won't have to move out the house that we were living in. So it's just important to make sure that we look beyond just the burial insurance, that we're looking big picture, that what we do today sets up generation after generation after generation. And so it's really, I like to call it a love letter that you're giving to the next generation. Because if you think about it, you can leave money so that it's passed on to your grandkids and your great grandkids. And they may get this money and say, wow, my grandparent thought enough of me, not even knowing me and knowing what I would be, to make sure that I was set up to do whatever I need to do, whether that's start a business or own a home or.
Exactly. So real talk, it's great to be a beneficiary. I want to clarify something real quick. You all might be asking. My good friend Eric is from the great state of
Massachusetts.
I was going to say Massachusetts, right?
Did it come out?
He's saying burial insurance.
Right. What did I say?
Don't worry about it. We'll come back to it later. But it is burial insurance.
It never comes out.
It was really my fault because I was listening to like, what word is he saying? What is burial insurance? What is burial insurance? Is there insurance in the barrel somewhere I need to know about? He's saying burial insurance. I get it. Burial insurance. That was a Boston
It never
thing.
comes out because most people can't tell that I'm from.
But that's because we're having blue solo cups this evening. That's really what it is. And while we're talking about those blue solo cups, real quick, let me just interject and let you all know this show is also being brought to you in part by A Shakur Boutique, offering 20% off of your total purchases just by joining the mailing list. So get over and check out the latest fashion offers at shop ashakurboutique.com. That's ASHAKUR boutique. Shop ashakurboutique.com. Also, Brand L is offering professional MUA services and consulting. You can go contact Brandy to book your appointment today at 872-216-9454. That's BL, Be Feminine, Improve the Space. I've been trying to get my face beat for the longest from Brandy, but we'll see what happens later. So it won't be tonight, though. So listen, Shauna Renee Moore asked a great question, and this is for anyone who hasn't really jumped into or hasn't taken time to get started on their credit repair. So she says, can you improve your score without credit cards as a beginner? Let's talk about even just as a beginner in general. What are some best practices in getting started?
Well, one of the things that I could speak to my clients or family members that I've done credit for, and I tell them this is like it's a teamwork thing. I'm not, even though I'm quote unquote the guy that's supposed to be the expert when I'm dealing with your credit.
I said, y'all, these are the experts. He said quote unquote, but it's true. It's really true.
I mean, he really is the expert. Again, at the end of the day, like I tell anybody, you could clean your own credit, but it's also like you could fix your own car. You know what I mean? Right. If you want to be your own dentist, you can be that. You can do anything you want to do, but it's the professionalism of it being done right. You know what I mean? So that's one of the biggest things about it. But what I kind of lean towards when people ask me that question is to say, what is the first word before card? It's credit. So like when you're thinking about building credit, to try to build it totally without a credit card is almost, I won't say impossible, but it's unlikely to get, because I hear everybody want to be 750, 800, and they want to talk these big scores.
I'll settle for a cool 695.
We'll get you together.
Cool.
We got you.
Great. Y'all heard about credit score at the beginning, right?
Yeah.
Don't try to write it down. What about FICO score? It's fine. You ain't even going to do anything with it, but it's cool.
But yeah, no, I mean, like I said, the only thing, and I could be honest and say this, the only portion of your credit score that me as the quote unquote credit professional help you with is payment history, because that's where your credit went bad at. You missed payments, you let some stuff close, and your score dropped. That's what happened. The other 4 sections, because there's 5 sections to a credit score. And one is payment history, which is 193 points, which is the biggest. But you have 4 other sections that equal out to 65% of your score. So what I'm saying is, even you could pay all your bills on time, and you still won't have a 600 credit score. And people say, well, how is that possible? I say, well, again, there's 4 other sections. Your payment history is great, but let's look at the other sections. What about your credit utilization? Oh, I don't got none. Also, you're not getting no points over there. Your credit age. Oh, well, I pay everything in cash, so you have no credit age. That you're not getting none in that section. Your credit mix. Oh, well, again, I pay everything in cash. Also, you don't have credit cards, installment loans. You don't have a mix of credit. Inquiries. Oh, yeah, well, I went and got a car, but they ran my credit 20 times. Okay, so now you're not getting no points in that section.
Wait a minute, who's running a credit 20 times?
The dealer. The dealers, listen.
Are you serious?
Hey, listen, I had a client who came in with 44 inquiries.
Wow.
And my question was, what was the reason? They said, well, the dealer told me that that's what they had to do. And I explained to them, I said, well, see, that's part of the reason why you come to professional, because I would have instructed you to say, well, look, join a credit union or go through your bank, get a pre-approval, and then go to the dealer. That way, you already approved. All they're doing is putting you in the car.
That's a good, if you're looking to buy a car. It's also someone to talk to clearly, because I didn't know that was a thing. Shout out to Sean Riley, who said, I'd be happy to help as a mortgage officer as well. Mortgage is another one, owning property. We were going to talk about that tonight too, as well. And that's definitely a good way to store financial services financial planning. Zoe, I know you mentioned something in our conversation that what you wanted to make sure that we talked about when it came to just transparency and some of the myths.
Yeah, and I'm glad I wanted to start there, but it was just because I knew the questions was going to come. One of the biggest things, and I don't want to just centralize it to the Black community, but I'm Black, so I'm gonna start.
And you know what? I should have brought you back for Dear Black People, because let me for the Black people, but let me start
with the minority.
All right,
because we kind of tend to do this the most. We be embarrassed about our credit scores. And
I put mine out there. You can do it too.
Yeah,
you can do it too.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't get started because they're so afraid to let even a professional know what their score is. And I'm like, well, look, I mean, you got to start somewhere. I mean, okay, nobody starts with perfect credit unless, which goes back to his point, you're in one of those classes of people who already understand as a adult, I'm going to put my kids as authorized users on my credit cards when they're 10 or 9. So when they turn 18, the moment they turn 18, they're already at a 750, 800 credit score.
Correct.
So guess what? If they don't get a scholarship, you're not paying for their college. You don't have to, because why? Because they can go get $100,000 in their own name.
Kind of talking about the alma mater planning. Another way to set your children up.
Future up. Yeah.
Yeah. That's important.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I just think that, we just got to be a little more, like I said, transparency, with each other about, even as a family member, because like I said, I grew up with the grandma who told me, don't get credit cards. They bad for you. And I keep explaining to people, there's a difference in credit and debt. Because you get credit cards don't mean go in debt. That just means that's supposed to be the backbone if things go bad for a minute.
Yeah.
Right.
It helps you move on.
Right.
So I'm going to circle back to that too, because I want to touch on when we get a chance about how all of this, for me, I have to get into the mindset. It's just like anything else with dieting, with exercise. It's a lifestyle. It's a mindset, and you have to get into that as your initial stance on, especially at least in my age, at least at the middle, late 30s to late early 30s. You have to get your mindset to that. This has got to be a focus now. There's got to be a lifestyle around it. And I got a question about, well, I don't have a question. It looks like there's a question that has come up a few times regarding credit unions. But real quick, I want to let El Bernard Jakes know something about he was leaving money for alma mater, and I wanted to see if I can be on that list of alma mater people that can receive the beneficiary funds that you're distributing. Just we can talk about what information you need. And GoFundMe shouldn't be the new life insurance. It's too easy to buy life insurance.
Amen.
And then he ends up with I endorse Eric Lane. Of course. Okay, he does. That's the Jake there, representing for his people. But so is that a thing? Because I've heard that before, that GoFundMe seems to be the new life insurance.
I don't understand, because we don't ask anyone to GoFund. Well, maybe they do. Maybe folks do ask GoFundMe to pay my rent and to pay for my baby's diapers and whatnot. But we expect that it's okay to use GoFundMe to pay for my final expenses. I don't get the connection, so maybe someone can make that for me. But it seems like it's becoming more and more okay to do that. So I'm just like, so do you use that to pay for other things?
Life insurance is important.
Life insurance is very important.
It's very important.
But it's also, to Pastor Jake's point, it's very easy to get.
Exactly.
Now, similar to when you're getting a loan, if you have a poor credit score, you might get a different rating. Likewise, if you have, some health issues or what have you, might get a different rating, but you can still get life insurance.
Right.
So it's too easy to get to rely on GoFundMe.
And so the financial services that I've looked at outside of my employer for life insurance. Now let's be clear. I am an advocate of, when you are working, where you are working, get you some insurance, health insurance, life insurance, term, disability, and whole, all of that. Get it, because you need it. You just never know what's going to happen. And that's smart planning for the future. But in addition to that, when you step outside of your employer, I've found that there are some obstacles. There are some difficulties with getting additional life insurance. So let me ask, and Orlando King, I'm going to get to your question in just a second, or your comment, because it seems that there's been some piggybacking on utilization of credit unions. But when you step outside and you go to financial institutions for life insurance, what are some of the obstacles to be aware of?
Well, I mean, basically, to be approved for life insurance, what they're going to be looking at is your gender. They're going to be looking at your age, and they're going to be looking at your health and lifestyle. So those are the things that are to be considered.
I didn't tell them I was jumping out of planes. I didn't tell them I was skydiving.
Well, that's a good thing.
Right. I only did it once. Twice. Whatever. Okay, so continue.
But yeah, so those are the things that they're going to consider. So even me, myself, now being diagnosed with lung disease and using oxygen, it's going to be a little bit or a lot more difficult for me to get life insurance. So one of the things I like to encourage people to do is get it while you're young. Right. It's going to be cheaper. You can afford it, and just maintain that policy into your senior years. And then by the time you get to your senior years, if you're using a cash value life insurance policy, that's going to grow with you as you age. So again, because it's based on age and health, get it while you're young. I know that's not what we're thinking about when we're in our 20s and 30s, but that is the best time to get life insurance, again, because it's the cheapest. It can stay with you, last you into your 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s even. And unfortunately, and I hate to keep harping on this, and I'm glad to be harping on this because I'll tell you what a discussion that I had day before yesterday. But unfortunately, in our community, the African American community, we usually wait till it's too late. We wait till we're in our 50s and 60s, and we have high blood pressure and diabetes and taking 10 medicines. And so then we end up having to pay a little bit more for life insurance. Again, you can get it, but you might have to pay a little bit more, or you might have to augment it a bit. So I just encourage folks to get it as soon as you can, while you're healthy, while you're young, before you develop something like lung disease all of a sudden. This came out of nowhere. Those who know me know this came out of nowhere for me, but now it's going to affect my ability to get good life insurance.
I wonder if we can vote people into politics that will change that. Hashtag voting is real. Get out there and do it. We got another important election coming up. Go ahead.
Yes, no, finish.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, so to piggyback on that, because I know I keep talking about the African American community. And I was talking to George about this the other day, and he was saying, wow, it just seems like we are always at the bottom of the barrel. Always seems like we are getting the short end of the stick.
As African Americans.
Sure. And I think I was sharing with him that I think he said, is that what our lot is? Is that what we're going to have to always face? And I think not. I think we just have to change our mindset and the way that we do things, and the way that we focus on credit, the way that we focus on life insurance, the way we focus on legacy planning, the way we focus on finance. And we need to take cues from other communities that are doing it a little.
We'll call them ethnicities. Other ethnicities. Yes. We do.
If we see that they're doing it well, and it's not a secret, it's not a mystery to how they're doing it,
adopt it.
We need to start adopting it, so that we don't get pigeonholed into being at the bottom of the barrel and getting the short end of the stick.
It is. It's like I said. It's a lifestyle. It's definitely a lifestyle change that we should be cognizant of. I want to get to Orlando King. He said, "Could both of you touch on how important the credit union is versus a traditional bank with the things they offer, like credit reports, life insurance, IRAs, savings, and etc." I'll tap that to both of you because Orlando King said, "Can both of you?"
Well, quick, on my end, I could just say that you're going to get primarily the best rates, and you're going to probably get better approvals going through a credit union because it's more than likely member owned. It's not a big financial institution where you're kind of going through the loops and all the loops that you would with a big bank. So I would definitely say if you can get into a good credit union, and they're pretty easy to get in, it's not that much to get into a credit union. In fact, some of the best credit unions in the country, you can get in for literally $5 or less. And I mean, the things you get, offered are much better than most banks. And I'm with the big banks, and I'm with credit unions, and I can tell you that a lot of the things that I've got has come through the credit union. So
I second everything. Ditto everything you said, because even in terms, you were talking on the credit side, but even in terms of the savings and the interest that you're going to get in terms of IRAs and things like that are always going to be a little bit better, because credit unions are not beholden to the stock market and the stockholders. Exactly. And they don't have the same type of board set up and whatnot. So as you correctly said, they are member run and member managed. So everything that they do, they're putting back into the bank or into the credit union rather to benefit the members. So
are there black credit unions? I didn't look into that.
That's a great question. I know there are black banks.
But they're black banks. So they're black. If y'all know some black credit unions, every now and then I get a good one in. All right. So listen, so Dr. Pastor L. Bernard Jakes says, and he typed this out, so I want you all to be my witness. All right, I got between 18 and 20 people listening. says that I'll put you in my will, Rick, if you admit you wanted to be an alpha. Here's the thing. I didn't want necessarily to be an alpha, but I did think about it and consider Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated down at SIU campus. Shout out to the gentlemen of IPI, Alpha Phi Alpha. I've considered them because they were the largest organization on the yard. They looked cool. They had all the dope parties. So I'd considered Alpha Phi Alpha as an organization, but Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated had the better lot for me because of the impact they were making in the community and educationally. So there it is. I said it. I want to be in the will for Dr. L. Bernard Jakes. I think that should be a thing. I think
I didn't say how you were going to be in the will.
Right.
Right. Whatever. Listen,
as long as you're in.
It's Dr. Jakes.
Right.
Okay. So and it sounds like they're saying that the video was frozen. I hope he got that though. That was a minute ago. I don't know if it's still heading or yeah, it looks like it's still going.
Right.
But as anyway, so we got that part. We at least got that part. Dr. L. Bernard Jakes, I want to make sure I'm listed in the will. Or anybody else, if you all want to list me in the will too. I'm okay with that too. Just let me know what I got to do. But financial planning is very important. He said touche. Financial planning is very important. If there were some points that did freeze, guys, I do apologize about it. But I will tell you this, and I'm going to start saying this on the show so that everybody understands. This is a radio show. We have the benefit of the live stream here on Facebook, and it's a great opportunity to have a conversation, an engaging conversation. But please note that this is a radio show, and you're always welcome to give us a call in during the show. And this does get podcasted, as I said several times. You can always check us out on iHeartRadio or iTunes. This show will probably go ahead on iHeartRadio because it seems like this was something that everybody should be privy to, not just the people who have Apple products. Shout out to Apple products. But before we go ahead and wrap up, because we only got a few moments left, I want to thank my guest, Mr. Zoe King, for being in the building, in the room with me, Mr. Eric Lane. Is there anything else that you gentlemen want to go ahead and say before we wrap up?
Just get started, man. That's it. I mean, there's no need to sit and wait 7 years for stuff to fall off your credit. Get started. Like I said, you don't have to pay nobody, but if you're going to do it yourself, just find all the information you need to do it right so you don't trip yourself up more. So just get started, man. Build stuff out for your family. That's basically it for me.
Yeah, I second that. Get started. Do something.
Right.
Do something. And I'll go back to the and.
Come on, and. The three letters.
And you can do both. Yeah. And you can do this and that and that and that.
Yep.
It might be smaller amounts that you can, participate, but you can do it. Do it.
Sounds good. And I'll make sure to get contact information for both of you posted so that you all can reach out to them directly. But make sure that you do so that you can do like I'm doing. I'm going to go ahead and do this challenge. I'm going to get my credit score up. I'm going to get my finances planned by utilization of these two gentlemen and their services. So you can tune in and check in with me to see how my journey is going. And I'll be a testimony and testament for them. But it seems like some of you all who are watching already have been. Be sure to download the iHeartRadio app and find us either on iHeartRadio or iTunes under the podcast section. Share this page on your Facebook or social media and keep the conversation going amongst your family, friends, and followers. Next week, we're going to be discussing educators, and somebody, it is Dear Black People episode, so somebody suggested that we do Dear Black People, Raise Your Children. We're going to talk about kids in schools and what they put the educators through, and make sure you tune in for that. If you have a question, comment, or an idea for a show, just email rixroom2@gmail.com. That's RIXROOM, the number 2 @ Special thanks to Mr. Al Young from Al Young Enterprises for producing Rix Room, always making sure we look pretty smooth up here as best as we can. He's offering services in performance and production engagements, artistic development, and personal image consulting. He probably would be mad I have this hat on right now, but don't tell him. And he's also just recently launched his branch of business for catering and your dining needs with Eat, EAT, by IMAY3. You can contact Al at 773-220-9869 or at Al Young 3, that's Roman numeral 3, that's 3 eyes, at me.com. That's Al Young Enterprises. Whatever you do, do it with passion. Again, thanks so much to my guests for tuning in, for being here. Thanks you all for tuning in. Stay tuned to IntellectualRadio.com and hang out with my girl, Dana being Dana. She's talking about the King Show. She's talking about Dr. Martin Luther King. So stay tuned for her. Thanks again for tuning in. Now get out.